Hello and welcome to the 10th day of the TooFatLardies Advent Calendar. We are into double figures, just over 2 days to the big day. Time flies when you're having fun, they say. So let's see what fun is behind the window today. Okay, let's unfold the piece of paper. Right. What 3 hobby tools or hobby techniques can you not live without? Oh, gosh. Well, we have so many tools these days, don't we? The days of just making do, not that long ago. I'm looking on my desk and I've got a couple of sets of really nice pliers here designed to cut plastic figures or kits from sprues. They're really nice, but they're not essential. Until a couple of years ago, I used to use large nail clippers that I thought you'd cut your toenails with. And frankly, they did the job just as well as these swanky and expensive pliers. I've got my wet palette on the shelf next to me, and it is great. But to be honest, I still use an old saucer that I've had for 30 years just as often. It's certainly easy to keep clean because it's glazed porcelain. You just chuck it in a sink of hot water and the acrylic paint just strips off, good as new. So it's not really an essential. I guess my approach here has got to be not what I like, but what is essential that I can't do without. I'm looking around. There's clearly anything that is essential is going to be close to hand. Right. Hot glue gun. Now, mine looks like it's survived a nuclear apocalypse. It's so battered and beaten up at the sort of Mad Max of hot glue guns. But that, I guess, is a testament to just how much I use it and the fact that I'm sat in my office with a bloody hot glue gun on the desk. I really do use them all the time. I use a hot glue gun a lot when I'm scratch building or converting buildings. I use a hot glue gun when I'm painting figures. Not only does it glue, but it also strengthens. So when I'm building, things like detachable roofs are always ideal candidates for packing up with a bit of hot glue to make the structure more robust. You can always pack that hot glue in nooks and crannies to make those joints more solid. I made some plastic kit barn that the Perrys produced. Really nice. It doesn't have a detachable roof, so it's a solid piece of kit. And I often find that, unfortunately, I don't know what it is, but that the plastic glue that I use doesn't tend to hold things together awfully well. And in the past, I have had a few models where, with a bit of bumping around, they tend to come apart. So what I did was when I constructed that, I filled it full of hot glue, not completely, just along the joints and edges, and then stuck that to the base, again using hot glue. And that's never moved. It's rock solid. And the hot glue obviously guns in beautifully when it's in that liquid state and then solidifies to be something solid and gives it real strength. So a really good piece of kit in that respect. I use it more often than not for attaching figures to the sticks that I use to paint. They aren't actually sticks, I'm not stupid. They're bits of MDF, about 12 inches long and about 3/4 of an inch wide and deep. So they're basically a stick. I then glue about 8 or 9 figures onto each of these sticks, and when I paint, I work down the line. I do 9 faces, then I do 9 right hands, and I do 9 left hands, and I do 9 right boots, and so on. It's a study in time and motion that allows me to get figures painted relatively quickly. I see a lot of people who paint their figures stuck on bottle tops, and I just think the time spent picking up and putting down each bottle top would be 50% of the time I'd spend painting each right hand or each left hand. And for me, who really does not enjoy painting, but see it as a necessary threshold to getting a game on the table, one that I have to go through. I want to get it done as quickly as possible, and using this system of sticks allows me to do that. In fact, often if I'm painting a platoon of infantry for World War II, I'll have 4 sticks, and I will literally go through four sticks, faces and then hands and so on and so forth, and really treat it like a production line. I find for me that allows me to supercharge my painting, and it's using the hot glue that allows me to stick them on there, and when I've finished painting, especially with metal figures, the hot glue normally allows the figures just to peel off. They're stuck in place, and pretty robust, but I can get them off easily. And if they're a little bit too stuck, just pop them in the oven for a minute or so, and then you can, where the glue's warmed up, they can come free. Clearly, you're going to avoid that with plastic figures because they don't just come free, they melt. Next has got to be my trusty scalpel. My mother was a chiropodist, and when she popped her clogs, I inherited a ton of utter rubbish. But there were a couple of good bits in there. There was a dressmaking yardstick that she had that is great for running games at shows. It allows me to point out what's happening as I'm speaking to the audience who are there watching, and it allows me to really cover the whole of the table. But better than that was her supply of scalpels and scalpel blades. I use the scalpel for cleaning up figures, cutting flash away. I use them for converting figures. I use them for cutting card and lightweight board, such as foam board, when I'm doing my build projects. And what I like is that, being a surgical scalpel, it's designed for the deft touch and precise work. It fits nicely in the hand. It's designed to do that. Unlike a lot of craft knives, which are often a little bit more clumpy. It isn't good for heavy-duty cutting, which is where the craft knives come into their own. But when converting figures or doing detailed work, you can really get into the nooks and crannies. The only downside is that a lot of the blades I inherited also smell of pensioners' feet. But let's move swiftly on. My airbrush has got to be the third. I don't use an airbrush very often, but when I do, it's the only tool for the job. Often, if I can't find the paintbrush that I want, I will use a brush that's second best. With an airbrush, nothing can substitute. Now, that can be painting camouflage on vehicles, where you can get a completely unique finish that you just can't do with a brush. You can approximate it with a brush, but doing it with that airbrush really replicates the system of compressed paint guns that was used at the time. It also allows you, if you're clever, to apply that sort of zenith undercoat. I've done that and tried that a number of times, and then I put the coat of paint on and I can't see the zenith. So for me, that's a bit of a waste of time. But it does allow me to do scenery jobs, such as adding a highlight, a really subtle dusting highlight of paint that I did, for example, using my banana plantations that I built for the Far East. It gently toned down the vivid greens, or it allowed me to apply a light green to the leaves of my bamboo plants, which I'd previously sprayed a light tan colour, which is absolutely great for the wood itself. But using the airbrush to apply from the top on the leaves, that allowed a bit of an overspray, which allowed some of those stems to appear to have an element of green to them, and it absolutely worked superbly. I have friends who paid a lot of money for really swish airbrushes and really swish compressors, but to be honest with you, that just doesn't work for me. I just buy cheap ones on eBay or Amazon. I find that I break them pretty rapidly, so buying something expensive just seems daft to me. There's no rhyme or reason to it. They just stop working. I clean them when I've used them. I take them apart. I clean them thoroughly, and it doesn't solve the issue. So Cheap and Cheerful does the job. When I have an airbrush job to do, I will use what I've got, and if it's broken, I'll buy another cheap one online. I know that I'm meant to be the one giving hobby tips here, but if anyone out there can advise me on what I'm doing wrong with airbrush maintenance, that might be the best Christmas present that I could hope for.